Today we were talking about Halloween. It's been a long season, I won't lie about that. For me, Halloween has always been a thing. A lot of that goes to having parents that wanted to celebrate it. I grew up in Southern California, which I've talked about before, and I think Halloween out there is very different than Halloween in the Midwest because, weather. Growing up, I was fortunate enough to have a mom who wanted to hand make our costumes every year, and she was always game to figure that out. As we got older, it, occasionally turned into like going to the Goodwill to find the components of a costume. But a lot of times she sewed it herself. I was Peter Pan more than once. I was a pirate. I was a wizard. As you grow older, things shift and you start to want to do things that are maybe a little more grown up or, not childish for lack of a better word. And because it's cooler to throw together your hippie costume or go for several years as the killer from Scream. But that's not entirely what Halloween is about. It's not about the trick-or-treating, and it's not about necessarily what costume you're going to be. For me, Halloween is all about nostalgia. And what does nostalgia look like to you? I think as I get older, I hold on to the past a lot more than perhaps I thought I would. When you have things like AI that generate these videos of Halloween in the 90s, you look back through these rose-tinted glasses of how great it was, because it's got the orangey, foggy filter. Everything looks pretty and clean. But that's also how I remember it. We didn't have a ton of stuff growing up. We were not, by any means, a rich family. When October 1st hit, we would get I think it was just a singular cardboard box of Halloween decorations out from the attic. Usually it was me because I think I was just always more into it than my siblings were. But you'd get the stuff out of the attic and then you'd get to place it around the house. And there was always the black stuffed cat that our dog had chewed the nose off of. There was the articulating paper skeleton and the paper witch and spider webs and and a lot of things. My mom was always very sensible about not letting us do certain things. Like the spider webs couldn't go outside too early because they'd get wrecked by the wind. In California we had the Santa Ana winds. Those would come through and mess everything up. We did not start the month off carving pumpkins because they were going to rot by the end, and we didn't have the money to just keep buying pumpkins. So it was simple. And maybe that's what I hold on to, is the simplicity of what it used to be compared to what it is now. Now, there are so many different directions you can go for Halloween. You can have zombie apocalypse. You can have murder spree. You can have nostalgic, like the kitchen is here. You can have witchy, under the sea. There's all sorts of directions you can go, but for me, it's trying to recapture that bit of the past. It's trying to recapture what it once felt like, and that is why I do the things that I do in my house, and it's to hopefully instill that feeling on other people. In a lot of respects, instill that on you, because you are watching this. I think the last year that I went trick-or-treating was when I was 16, and it was just around the neighborhood, around the block. You definitely feel like you're losing a part of your youth when you have to do that. Childhood for me ended a lot earlier than most, I think, because I was just so big. By the time I was in 7th grade, I had broken 6 feet. I remember being a kid and going to McDonald's and being told by the employees that I couldn't play in the playhouse because they thought I was older than I was. Some things stick with you. So, as I grew up, stopped dressing up for Halloween and fell back on what the traditions were. On Halloween Day, you carve your pumpkins. For dinner that night, you have pepper bellies. Now, if you're not familiar with a pepper belly, I will explain what it's called in the Midwest, which is a walking taco, kind of. Growing up in Southern California, we were all in soccer. We were in the AYSO. And Saturdays were game days. And for game day, there was always like a trailer with food at the middle school, because the middle school had 8 8 or 12 soccer fields. And sometimes my mom would volunteer in that food truck. And one of the things they sold were pepper bellies. So it's basically a bed of Frito chips, and then chili goes on top of it. And then for a pepper belly, it would be like sour cream, shredded cheddar cheese, and then jalapenos. And that's just stuck with me for sure. As I've grown up, and especially once I moved out, that is what I make every year for Halloween. The recipe has changed over the years. It used to just be cans of Hormel chili mixed with some other stuff. Now it's all from scratch, and I'll drop the recipe for that below. Forewarning, it makes a lot. You will fill your crock pot. When I moved out on my own, or with my ex rather, that first year, I wanted to have a Halloween party. I'd never had one. I'd always wanted to have one. You buy what you can afford, which for me was, or for us, it was just a lot of stuff from Spirit Halloween. I decided that I wanted to be the sisters from Hocus Pocus, and I was going to be Winifred, and my ex was going to be Sarah, and my friend Kyle was going to be Mary. And I turned to my mom to make my outfit, and she jumped at it. She was so excited to make this outfit, and I went and picked out a pattern from Joann Fabrics and bought the fabric, and my mom made it, and we had an amazing Halloween party. We repeated it the next year. It was bigger, had a little bit more money that year, so we were providing more in terms of drinks and things like that. The party was a smash. We ran out of drinks. I did tarot readings, and which was a mistake because I was locked in the basement for 2 hours doing these and missing the party that I had put together. I loved knowing that people were having a great time, and that people were doing something for Halloween, and that for a lot of them, I think they left from the party to go out to the bars or, whatever. But it was still this fun way to kick the evening off and be part of what everyone else was doing, because I'm not much of a bar person, and I never was. After we broke up, I had moved back in with my parents for a bit. That party stuff ended. It would not resume again until living in this house. But the traditions remained the same. And once I became the general manager of my own pottery barn, I could ensure that I had Halloween off. I would always refer to it as that's my Super Bowl. That's my big, I have to be off. So the day now, I'm always off. The day starts with filling the crock pot so that it can cook all day long with that chili and getting going on pumpkins. But as I'm carving pumpkins, I will have scary movies on. Now the scary movies that I watch the day of, they can vary. They're not often the same every year. Usually it's whatever I haven't gotten around to watching that Halloween season. That's what I'll turn on. But there is one movie that I watch every single year, usually in the evening, and that is Trick or Treat. And if you haven't seen that, it was not a very popular movie when it came out. It didn't do well in the box office. And I think for the most part, it ended up just going straight to DVD at the time. Since then, it has kind of amassed this cult following of fans because it is truly an amazing movie. Trick or Treat very largely influenced my view of Halloween since then. What Trick or Treat does very well is it establishes rules of Halloween. And some of the rules are similar to childhood. Always check your candy. Never go out alone. Never blow out your candles on your pumpkin. Some years I use LED lights in the pumpkins, so that doesn't really work for not blowing them out. But I will stay up till midnight every year on Halloween for 2 reasons. One, to turn out the lights at midnight so that I don't get attacked by any wayward spirits. But 2, I can play my first Christmas song and then go to bed. Because I do love Halloween, but I do love Christmas too. For those of you that have been watching me for a minute, you know also that my first house was haunted. And if you want to know more about the manor, how the manor was haunted, the link to that video is below. Living at the manor, it took me until Halloween to actually talk to my house. And after I talked to the house, things were good. I felt like a fool talking to it. You can't stand in your stairwell speaking idly to your house and crying because of the emotional relief of doing so. Not feel a little bit silly. Every year since, I have spoken to my house. And that has not changed here. Here, I wouldn't necessarily say that this house is haunted, but I will say that this house has some energy in it that wants to be known. We're going to go upstairs in just a moment so I can show you. And I'm also fully aware, not all of you believe in ghosts. You don't have to. That's okay. That's my journey. It doesn't have to be yours. As you get older and you do the things that you do on Halloween, you do the things to feel that connection to your past. There is a certain sadness that comes with it, at least for me. The older I get, the more I wax nostalgic on what the past was, how many kids there used to be running up and down the street getting candy. And it's just not that way here. I live literally catty-cornered from a school. Granted, it's a Catholic school, so I don't know how those Catholic kids are doing with trick-or-treating. There's a school half a mile the other way, a high school within, I don't know, a mile and a half. Point being, I don't live out in the boonies. There are a lot of kids in the neighborhood. In the summertime, you see a ton of kids scooting around the street, but they're not really out on Halloween. My first Halloween in this house, it snowed. I feel like last year it may have rained a bit, but otherwise it was pretty good. This year, I'm hoping that because I have the house lit up the way that I do, I'm gonna get some good traffic. With the chili and the pumpkin carving and the horror movies, there is also the trick-or-treating. I'm not one of those people that wants to scare kids by any means. I mean, I do like scaring kids. I'll take any opportunity I can to scare a child. I am not doing what I do for Halloween to scare the hell out of some kid to make them not want to come back to my house. My house is all lit up. There are pumpkins. I don't answer the door in a costume. I'm friendly with the kids, and because I'm genuinely happy to see them, and I want them to kind of tell their friends to come here too. Mostly so I don't get left behind with so much extra candy like last year. Those are traditions. Now that our friend here has eyes so he can see, let's go upstairs and talk about scary stuff. I know we haven't been upstairs here at the house, or if we have, it's been in very fleeting moments, so you're not going to get a full walkthrough. I'm sorry. This candle is going to town. But I'll show you a couple of the rooms where things have happened and where I've kind of felt stuffish. I'm going to take you mobile now. We're going to walk through the Wicked Woods to go upstairs. And we'll start in the back bedroom, which is the guest bedroom. Talk about the bathroom a little bit, and then just a brief glimpse of my work zone of a bedroom. All right, so now that our friend is carved, I'm gonna go upstairs and talk some stories, but this is how the Wicked Woods are turning out. Pretty nifty, and I'm very happy with it. Very happy with it, very ready for this stuff. So we'll go upstairs and talk. Stairwell is all done up. Did I show you this before? Maybe I did. We're up here at the top of the stairs. There used to be a wall here. That was a closet. There's a door now. It's the balcony. It's a whole thing. We're gonna end here. We're gonna start in the back bedroom. I'd say starting up here. Now this room, probably the mid to late 30s until the mid 60s, this room was a kitchen upstairs because the second floor of the house was an apartment. The wall behind me, that was where like the sink would have been. There is an odd feeling in this room, and maybe it's because the ceiling is lower than any other room in the house. Maybe it's because a big portion of one of the walls is angled because of the ceiling. I don't know. It's easy to get creeped out in this room. I didn't spend much time in here until this summer when I had to sleep in here because of my bedroom being under construction. I don't know. There's something very quiet and still about this space. And we'll get to it at the top of the stairs, but the first time I felt something in this house, which there have not been many times, I'll be honest. I was finishing up work in here for the night, and this was before I had even moved in. So I kind of tie it to that. Leaving this room, we start walking up the hall a little bit to the upstairs bathroom. Not much special can be said about a bathroom, right? This bathroom has had a soft remodel to it. Apart from what I had felt at the top of the stairs, nothing in this house, nothing happened until last November. And it was November 3rd. And I know this because I started making notes in my phone. November 3rd, I was decorating for Christmas downstairs and heard some sort of a sound come from the kitchen area. Downstairs, not this old kitchen thing. The next night, I heard two more sounds. And when you live in your house, especially when you live alone, you know the sounds that your house makes. Houses creak and groan, and there's little weird pops that happen. They were not those sounds. But that night of November 4th, something else happened in here. And it was the first physical thing that happened. I was taking a shower, as you do, and I heard this sound. That is the sound of the drawer opening in the vanity. When I poked my head out of the shower, the drawer was indeed all the way open. I'll demonstrate for you. This is not a drawer that just opens. Obviously, you can't feel the pressure that I'm applying with my fingertip, but like, it doesn't just slide open. But the drawer was fully open to the point of it clacking like that. And I froze because it scared me, and I poked my head out of the shower to see if the cats were in here. Perhaps, sometimes Paolo likes to pull on drawers. Usually it's when they're gonna be getting wet food. There were no cats. After that, nothing else happened until January. And it was January 6th. And I was walking with, I had made this dumb ottoman, this upholstered ottoman that I thought I could do a DIY hack, and it was no good. So I was bringing it up to relegate it to the closet in the back bedroom. And I was walking down the hallway with it in front of me. And as I entered the guest bedroom, I felt a rush of air past my legs. There's no airflow in that room, really. There's really no airflow upstairs in general. But it was enough, and it was reminiscent enough of the top of the stairs that it terrified me. It terrified me. And that happened at 11:36 at night. And again, I know because I have my notes. So now we'll go into my bedroom, and we're gonna talk about what was going on in there. So coming into my bedroom, work in progress. That door was the closet door. This was the door to the hallway. Several things happened in this room. Most things happened in this room, I'll say. If you watched my intro to the estate, this room historically had been an upstairs living room. The wall that I am building right here had connected to that outer wall where the angle is coming down, and the wall behind me did not exist. This was the upstairs, I guess you could call it like the family room, because it was not a formal space for entertaining. It was for the family to relax in at the end of a day. But in this room, things happened at night all the time. So after the evening with the ottoman, the next night, January 7th, I was upstairs. I had put my phone on the nightstand and turned the lights out. And while trying to fall asleep, my phone flipped off the nightstand. Now, maybe it didn't flip. You could perhaps say it slid off, but it was 11:46 p.m. Turned the light on, picked the phone up. Fine. After that, it was quiet for a time, but I had started talking about what I was going to be doing in the drawing room. I think that the house knew something was going to be happening. The house knew that original walls were going to be coming down and redone and fixed, and maybe the house was happy about that. Maybe it was excited about that. But March 10th, I came upstairs with Paolo at 11:32 p.m. At the top of the stairs, I heard sounds coming from my bedroom. When I entered the room through that door that's boarded off now, silence. It stopped. The next night, my cell phone fell off the nightstand again, 11:29 p.m. And then the next night, March 12th, I dreamt of a haunted house. I don't often remember dreams. And if you do, like, congrats, because that's a great skill. I wish I remembered my dreams more. I dreamt of a haunted house. And for the first time in my life, I woke up at 6 a.m. with sleep paralysis. I couldn't move. And next to my bed was a figure all in black. And it wasn't like black shirt, stuff. It was almost like a black nylonish material, head to toe, very, very tightly pulled in. But the figure had moved forward and was pushing down on my chest and my face. And I felt this just kind of, it didn't hurt. I could still breathe. But there was this pressure pushing down on me. The next night, March 13th, when I turned the TV off at 12:03 a.m., there was a very loud snap from upstairs. The next night, March 14th, there was a very loud snap or pop upstairs at 11:36 p.m. that caused both of the cats to flip their heads up to the stairwell from where we were all sitting on the sofa. And then nothing happened for like a week and a half. And then March 25th, which was the night that all the demo started in the house, or at least, for the drawing room, for tearing it apart, I woke up at 11:50 p.m. in pure terror that there was someone in my room. And it was that kind of terror that you associate with being a child and just wanting to cover your face. So now we'll go out to the top of the stairs. And this was the first place where something had actually happened. And when I moved in, there had been a doorway here because it was the apartment upstairs. But I took that door out pretty quick. And in doing so, it opened everything up here because I wanted it just to feel much more,
not airy, I guess, because that wall was still sealed off and, there was a door here. I was closing up for the night and had come, and I was over in the back bedroom and turned the lights out, which, it's kind of creepy when you come in to this place in general, especially when it was under construction. And the lights were out because there weren't a lot of ceiling lights because a lot of them had to get taken out and there just weren't a lot of ceiling lights in general. So being alone in the house at night in the dark, that lends itself to it. But as I was coming down the hallway, I felt just this rush of air past me and going into the stairwell. And it was just one of those things where you pause and you kind of think and you take stock, and then it was like, okay, it's time to get the hell out of here. So that was the first experience.
There's a lot that can be said about this house and the opportunities that this house has to haunt. But I will say, once the drawing room fully commenced and work was really underway, nothing was happening. And I think that lends itself to my theory that this is what happened at the manor too, and it's that houses get excited for changes, especially when you're going to be making something better. And in terms of this room, that meant new insulation and new wiring and adding character back into a house that had, for the most part, all of the character stripped away. And I think the house was happy for that. There have been a few odd things since then. I've had the ceiling fan in my bedroom on in the morning when it can only be activated by the remote, and I didn't turn it on. I've woken up to the ceiling light itself being on. There are certain things that happen that creep you out and give you the ugh. But, for the most part, this house has been wonderful. And I will talk to it again on Halloween, as I do every year. Just have a chat with and by myself and see what shakes out. All that being said, before wrapping this video up, I promised that I would show you guys final looks. Final looks for the house, what you've been watching over the last 4 episodes, and not really this one, but the last 4. To do that, I'm going to have the hostess of the actual party walk you through what those are, and she's gonna do a great job. So, all that being said, thank you so much for sticking with me. I see you, don't touch me. Thank you so much for sticking with me through all of this, and I hope you guys have a very happy Halloween season, and I will...
Well, hello, you delicious little nightmares. It's me, Elvira, the mistress of the drawing room, the ghost hostess with the mostest, and apparently tonight's tour guide through this haunted heap Sean calls a home. This Halloween season has been one for the record books. We've had restorations, resurrections, and more pumpkins than a basic witch's Pinterest board. But enough about Sean's emotional baggage. Let's take a moonlit stroll through the grounds and see how the estate has finally turned out. Our first stop at the estate is outside. The exterior's all aglow, brighter than my future after death. And standing there are Stone Cold Babe Frances, keeping watch and checking the guest list twice. She's been standing guard all month and hasn't moved an inch. A real rock-solid woman, that one. As we move inside, we've got the front porch, where poor Frederick the Pumpkin is under siege by skeletons. Oh my, and it looks like a parent and their wayward kids are trying to take him apart. While 2 others are in the midst of, well, sharing a bona fide romantic moment. Don't judge. Love is eternal, and so are they. Uh-oh, when good decorating goes bad. Poor dear, someone got stuck in the lights. Ah, the drawing room, or as I like to call it, the Haunted Pumpkin Grove. Look at this place.
pumpkins piled higher than my dry cleaning bill, and more moss than a crypt keeper's hairpiece. Sean went a little overboard here. But when your idea of subtlety involves skeletons on every surface, you might as well commit. The lights glow like a Halloween fever dream, and the TV, the night of the party, was running horror classics. Because nothing sets the mood like a little on-screen screaming to match the off-screen kind. It's giving spooky sophistication, or as I call it, Tuesday. Now this is what I call atmosphere. The parlor is transformed into the Wicked Woods, complete with real branches hanging from the ceiling. Because nothing says hospitality like debris falling in your punch bowl. And the cauldron setup? Oh, honey, it's bubbling, it's toiling, it's smoking, it's overcompensating. Just how I like it. There was food everywhere, 3 deadly punches to choose from, and if you weren't careful, you could get tangled up in the spider webs before you even made it to dessert. I call that portion control. And then our next stop is the kitchen, where things get a little less frightening and a lot more fall-flavored. Vintage lanterns, orange and black, everything. It's like if a 1950s postcard had a seance. Serving a classic dose of candy and candles and cozy chaos, you could almost smell the childhood sugar rush. And look at these pumpkins. Real ones. Half carved, half possessed, floating pieces and all. Nothing says seasonal cheer like gourds that appear to be doing yoga mid-dissection. It's cozy and it's nostalgic and it's slightly unhinged. Like grandma, but with better lighting. And finally, my favorite little corner, the potions room. The pantry's been completely bewitched. Self-pouring cauldrons, bubbling brews, and more bottle than a bartender at closing time. Everywhere you look, bottles of mysterious liquids floating in midair. Don't drink them unless you're into spontaneous transformations. Or marriage. It's beautiful and it's dangerous and it smells faintly of burnt sugar and bad decisions. My signature scent. Well, my creepy cuties, I'd say the estate cleaned up frightfully well. The transformation was to die for, and the party even better. But don't take my word for it. There were witches in wigs, devils in heels, and skeletons that definitely were not on the guest list. The spirits were flowing, the ghouls were dancing, and nobody left in one piece. Emotionally, at least. A huge thank you to everyone who has joined me and Sean for this month of mayhem. But don't go burying your excitement just yet. We'll be back on Halloween Day with Cray Beaumont Flynn and the Beyond the Design podcast, a podcast that Sean recorded this summer, and then it's finally coming to fruition on his favorite day, because there's just a few more cauldrons to stir before we put them away and move on to the next great thing at the estate. Mark your calendars for Saturday, December 13th, when Vlogmas at the estate begins. 12 videos of holiday chaos, questionable decisions, and even a little bit of magic. Until then, my pretties, unpleasant dreams.